薄いのアホ。
プリズムパワーメイクアップカードレディー。
Welcome to Shoujo and Tell, where we discuss shoujo manga and tell who's hot and who's not, talk about themes, and just generally geek out. Today, March 4th, 2018, we'll be shoujo and telling about the second half of the series, We Were There, by Yuki Obata. So that's volumes 9 through 16. I'm your host, Ashley McDonald, and I'm joined once again by special guest, Nancy Thistlethwaite, who's the senior editor of Viz Media's Shojo Beat line. Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
So, just in case somebody was more curious about the second half of We Were There, they like the time skip, I guess, or something. Can you once again give a brief intro of yourself so that people know who you are?
Hi, I'm Nancy. I work on the Shojo Beat line. I've worked on series such as Vampire Night and Oran High School Host Club, and of course, We Were There.
Yeah. So you're the best person to talk about We Were There with.
Yes.
And I know that we forgot to mention this last time. Perhaps I'll cut it in, but we wanted to make sure that people know that you can, if you haven't read We Were There yet, you can read a free preview on Viz's website and the apps, right?
Yeah, it's available. It's still in print. You can find copies on Amazon, but you can also read it digitally through vizmanga.com or on Kindle, Nook, etc.
Yep. And Viz's own app, which my partner Jeff works on. So we're all Team Viz here. Yay, Team Viz. So the second half of We Were There is, you know, logical following of the first half, but also a massive time skip. So do you want to give a brief synopsis of what has happened in this time skip?
This is where I think we skipped till they're about 22 or 23 years old, all the characters. And they are just coming out of college and looking for jobs and starting jobs in the working world. And we find out what happened to Yano all those years ago.
Yes, because for somehow they haven't talked for 5 years, which is devastating.
Yeah, he goes missing. He doesn't keep his promise. So
I want to know, I'm very curious, when you learned that there was going to be this massive time skip, were you trepidatious?
No, not at all.
You were like, it's going to be great?
Yeah, I don't know if we had caught up to Japan at that point. We might have, because she did have a year off. Like, she did take, I think that was after the time skip, though, but I think after one of the more involved volumes, she took some time off and then resumed the series like a year later.
Yeah.
But no, I felt like it made sense and it went together. I didn't see that there was much more to cover in high school, really. So I actually thought it was really nicely done and put together.
Yeah, I guess I was just afraid. My biggest fear was that I was like, oh, there's 5 years skipped. Like, how is it going to make sense? They still care so deeply about these things. But I was like, nope, I was sold. I was sold on how much they were still so caught up in each other and everything. I was like, yeah, who cares about those 5 years? You don't need them. But yeah, so this seems obvious, but, you know, spoiler warning, we are going to ruin the ending of this manga. So if you have not, I don't know why you would listen to the second half of a series recording, but I don't know you, maybe listener. So, you know, just warning, spoiler warning. We'll try to give enough that if you read it a while ago, you'll remember. But yeah, otherwise, if you don't want to know how this ends, don't listen to this. Anyway, so we're just going to jump right in. I wanted to start by just talking about characters specifically and like their specific struggles throughout these 8 volumes, because I feel like each of them embodies some very specific struggle about memories, moving on, death, big weighty, becoming an adult. So many things are happening to them. Gosh, adulthood is already so hard for them. Yeah, so I guess I was trying to determine if it made sense to start with Nanami, since she is the main character. Like, is it better to start with her? Worse? But we're just gonna go for it. We're just gonna start with Nanami. She is our plucky main character, I guess, who is very sad that she has not seen Yano for 5 years.
Yeah, she has no sense of closure. So I think, you know, she's she made her vow to wait for him, and so she's having a hard time because she doesn't know what happened to the guy that she fell in love with.
Yeah, and he was so loyal to her. Like, we see Yano is really trying in the beginning, because it does, even though there is a time skip, it does flash back to, in many instances, to what happened to them in that last year of high school and early college, I guess.
Right. And I think they all know that something bad happened, right? They don't know what.
Yeah, you gotta assume, right? She even thinks at some point, she's like, I don't even know if Yano's alive, which of course is poignant, because that's exactly what Yano's issue is, that he never had closure with Nana, but it's very clear that she died, so, you know, he doesn't have a chance with it, but she's always holding out, like, I hope he's not dead, so she's like, how could we not have this closure when that's all he ever wanted with Nana-san?
Right. And I think also because she made the decision to, you know, he would have stayed if she had asked him to stay. So I think she also feels part to blame in a way, because he probably would have been okay if he had spent that final senior year, you know, with all his friends at high school, right?
I guess, but then wouldn't bad stuff still have happened to his mom? Like, that would still be tragic, right? And you wouldn't be able to help her if he was still in...
That was later, though, wasn't it? I think when his mom gets ill, it's during that year. But at least I think she would have known what was going on. You know what I mean? If he had gone to Tokyo to be with his mom.
Mm-hmm. He would have had a specific reason.
She would have known what the circumstances were.
That's true. Now she's just like, because he's hiding stuff from her.
There's two things that happened to his mom, right? I was thinking about the second thing, which is later on, but yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but she's fighting the cancer the whole time because she's been like ignoring the stuff to go to the doctor, so she eventually is just very, very sick, right? And obviously Nanami has this whole other relationship, which is Takeuchi, trying to accept his feelings. Is she trying to accept his feelings, actually? I guess.
No, I don't. I went back and I started thinking about it, and I feel like there's just friendship between them, and there's a lot of reasons why I feel that way, but I think, and he never really pursues her. It goes from like friendship to, will you live with me? There's nothing in between. So I think she really just wants friendship from him, but he kind of keeps trying to push something else on it. Yeah. Anyway, that's how I see it, because I realize that all their romantic moments together, if you can call them romantic, one, we never see them kiss, right? They may kiss like maybe twice in 5 years.
Yeah, right.
And the other thing is, it's always centered around Yano. Whenever they get really close and intimate, it's because they're talking about Yano. So I don't actually see, I think she's trying really hard because that's what Takeuchi wants, but I don't think that's there. That's my reading of it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely remember her complaining at points that she's like, Takeuchi never touches me. Like, he says he wants this one thing, but we never even hold hands. And right. I don't know, I guess I gotta pin that on Takeuchi. Like, he says he wants one thing, but he never pursues it fully.
Yeah, and I think he also, tells her that it's okay if she still loves Yano, right? It's you don't need to forget him. You can still love him. But she realizes, there's a point where she realizes that even though he never says it, and this is why I hate Takeuchi, like later on, he never says it, but she realizes there's a point where he is going to expect her, to forget Yano. And she knows that, so I think that's why she never completely him when he lays on the guilt trip later, where he's like, I've spent so long waiting for you. You can't reject me now.
I know. I was like, Takeuchi, don't pull that card. That card is always bad.
Especially when you're like, oh, it doesn't matter now. Oh, wait, yeah, no, it does matter.
It definitely matters. The words I said were lies. I meant them at the time, but I realize now that it was wrong.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it happens a lot where, you get friend zoned, and then it's kind of like, I've always been so nice to you, so like I deserve what I want from you, and I'm like, no, that's always wrong. Dudes, it's just always wrong.
Yeah. I will argue, I think since we're talking about Takeuchi too, I will argue that I'm not sure he loves Nana like he thinks he loves Nana. Like when Yano tells Takeuchi, I'm totally okay if we're not friends, you know. If it comes down to Nana, I'm going to choose Nana. Where Takeuchi isn't that way, right?
Right.
And he actually probably does care about Yano more than he cares about Nanami.
Definitely.
You can make the argument. You can make that argument. Yeah.
I'm definitely OTP is Yano and Takeuchi. Like they deserve each other more than almost anybody in this manga.
I ship Nanami and Yano too much for that, but
that's fair, but I'm just saying Takeuchi gave Yano a ring and I was just like, bros, like, do you not see it though? Do you not see it?
And he said he would marry him too.
Yeah, exactly. And Yano's like, if I was a girl, I'd marry you. I'm like, do you not see it? Do you really?
Right.
I love them, but yeah. Oh, man love. It's so good. Yeah, it's hard to talk about Nanami without talking about everybody else because obviously. But I feel like Takeuchi sort of in saying that she doesn't have to forget Yano, you know, is kind of, I feel like there is a how should I phrase this? This manga is a lot about memories and what to remember and what to forget. And I'm just like, Takeuchi, forgetting things does have a purpose in humans. Like, we need to forget very bad things so that we can move on. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, just tell her that it's like she can remember only the good things, but like it's still a memory. I don't know. And just like,
who are you rooting for?
Who are you? Oh, I mean,
are you rooting for Takeuchi?
I'm not rooting for him. And I'm just like, Takeuchi, I just want you to
Stop
be
trying to help him out.
Stop trying to help.
No.
I know. I just want him to be better, you know? Like, oh, God. Takeuchi, why are you like? I think because he is actually one of the more annoying characters to me, I just think about him too much, and I'm like, no, I need to focus on the good people, not Takeuchi. Who cares about him? He's all like sad and living in Yano's shadow all the time, but trying not to.
Yeah, I found that the second reading, you know, after like a decade, I felt like I liked him better than I did. I was so mad at him, like the first time I went through it. Okay. And this time I'm not he doesn't bother me as much, except for the guilt trip that he puts on Nanami. Right. And then I'm just like, you know, he's like, okay, I'm going to punish you. We're not going to be friends anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like, would he ever do that to Yano? No. So.
Oh, which part of, like, was there a moment where you were like, I get you more, Takeuchi?
I don't know if it's that. I guess maybe you're just
more accepting of him.
I think I'm more accepting of him, even though, yeah, he annoys me greatly.
Fair. But yeah, I really admire Nanami living up to her. You know, Nanami is a very loyal person, I would say, and I admire such loyalty in characters for sticking with the ghost of the memory of Yano for so long.
Yeah, I think she's the gold standard, right? Yeah. She's the thing that kind of keeps everything together. Without her, probably you could argue that all the other characters would be falling into the abyss, right?
Yeah.
So... yeah, I do like that part where she kind of decides, like, okay, I've made my choice, you know, even if I end up without anyone else, I chose Yano.
Yeah.
You know, where all the other people are kind of like, well, maybe I'll try to hang out, you know.
A little wishy-washy.
Yeah. I'll try to make do with this other person.
Yeah, settling so young in their 20s.
Right, which is kind of like what they're talking, like, what I like about this is that pretty much everyone else, all her college friends, Sengenji, all these people, and Take too, are like, there's different kinds of love. You know, you can have this kind of steady love versus this overwhelming love, the love of your life, probably your soulmate, right?
Yeah.
And she never gives up on that love, even though all these other people are trying to tell her, oh, and that annoying mangaka sensei guy, right?
Yeah.
They're interviewing, they're like, don't give up, you know, the steady, you know, thing that you have for what you know in your heart to be true.
Yeah.
Right?
I was always like, how should I feel about this mangaka? Is he deep or no? Is he annoying? Pretty sure he's annoying.
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, there's different and different people go about love and marriage in different ways. There's definitely people in this book who are looking for marriage. I mean, you could argue Yano's mom, right? Like her marriage was for convenience, right? Not really because she was in love with the guy she divorced later.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's people who are approaching relationships in different ways, I think.
Yeah, and I definitely, you know, it's definitely a Yano versus Take model of love, like burning passion, just do things in the moment versus like, I'm just steadily here for you, sitting here waiting for you. And they have a lot of discussions about rationality versus instinct, and I think it's most interesting played in Sengenji, I guess, who is the one who brings it up, because she's always trying to be like, no, I totally want just this steady love.
Right. She's so totally practical. Like, she likes Yano, but she doesn't like him enough to... I kind of feel that way with Takeuchi, too. Like, they say they're in love with these people, but they don't quite go all the way, right? Because they're too practical to do that.
Yeah, and I understand those people. I mean, I feel like we all understand those people because it's the easier thing to, like, deal with in life, but...
Right.
Oh, maybe now I'm like, ooh, is Takeuchi and Sengenji a good couple? Like, are they like two steady people? They'd be good.
I really like that. I think they have one of the best scenes in the book when they're out drinking together and they're having that argument, you know, where they talk about physically hurting someone is against the law, but you can break anyone's heart.
Yes.
And not have any consequences for it. And Takeuchi goes on to say, you know, well, if someone blinded you and you couldn't see, you know, and he equates that with, well, what if someone hurt you and you lost your feelings? You know, you just couldn't love or be present for people, which is what happened to Yano for those years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Such a good... All their conversations were so good that I feel like by the end I was like, I don't know. They're all just so deep.
Right. Yeah, they're all searching for truth, right? In relationships.
But that's what's great, because in the setup of those models, I don't necessarily, you know, I feel like the manga gives fair treatment to both of them. I don't think one of them is wrong necessarily. Like, I think Takeuchi is searching for the wrong person.
Right.
I think that his model of love is fine.
Right. Yeah, and Sengenji too. Like, she's awesome as well.
Yeah, Sengenji. I want Sengenji to be my friend.
She's so weird. She spends most of her time, you know, telling Nanami, like, just forget the guy. And then she's like, oh, no, you've got to go meet him. You've got to go see him.
Yeah. She's like, wait. I found him, and no.
You need to go.
Yeah, you need to go right now. That makes sense, though. You know, she said that when she didn't know where he was, and then as soon as she was like, well, now he's here, so, like, you gotta see him, right? Like, that makes sense. That's part of the practicality. Before it wasn't practical to see him. Now it's totally practical, so... But yeah, I guess we should talk about Yano and his... Oh, Yano. So many things happen to you, boy.
Yeah, I think Yano, he becomes a main character in the second half. Right. So he's sharing main character status with Nanami, which I think is really strong because we get to see things from what's happening to him. What is withheld from us is how he feels about Nanami for a long time. Right. We're not quite sure if he still loves her or what's going on until we start seeing his dreams, which I know we'll probably talk about dreams and memories and stuff. But it slowly starts getting revealed to us, like when he's drunk, he's trying to buy a birthday cake for her, or when he's having these dreams. But yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, just his character arc is so amazing, right?
Yes, in a very devastating way.
Right.
Him buying birthday cake for her, I was like, stop, Yano, it hurts too much.
Yeah, I know. And like, blabbing to all his coworkers, and then he doesn't remember anything in the morning.
Yeah, and then he's like, why do we have like 50 million different pieces of cake? Like, I wanted a birthday cake, you fools! Like, what is this?
Yeah, and I think what's good too is like in other shoujo series, like if he is kind of avoiding the heroine and he keeps too much to himself, and you kind of write him off like, oh, he's only concerned about his own stuff, he's a jerk. And then you realize here that, you know, no, actually he's having panic attacks. Actually, the worst thing happened to him and he can't deal. He can't, you know, he said he couldn't get on a train. He couldn't work. he is not able to function, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like you really see the other side of what he's going through.
Yeah, I really didn't expect it to go like actual full panic attacks. And then when that happened, I was like, wow, okay.
Well, his mom, I mean.
Yeah. Ugh. So, yeah, his mom ended up committing suicide, which was...
To punish him.
I know, it's so mean. Ugh, so
Yeah,
mean.
I mean, she had already given up on life. But that was evident. And he needed her, right? But she was too much in her own, where she was, you know, she wasn't going to go back to the hospital. She started having delusions about how his father's wife was going to take him away from her.
Yeah.
You know, I almost feel like maybe there was like some sort of chemical imbalance, you know, to her, to where she started like kind of freaking out about that stuff. And of course, he had no support, right? He's always there to support other people, but he had no support himself.
Right.
You know, and then you have that heartbreaking scene where he just, you know, he didn't go and see Nanami when he said he would. You know, he finally decides, okay, I am going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go see her. And he tells his mom, like, I'm going to go see my girlfriend. It's been a year. And it's on his birthday. Let's remember, it was his birthday. And then she is upset that he's leaving and kills herself. You know, so, and she knows he'll find her. Like, she could have waited. If she really just wanted to end it, she could have let him go and just committed suicide when he was already on the plane. But she didn't. She did it that night to make sure that he found her.
Yeah, I mean, because the scene before is him, like, kind of giving her a lecture, right? Like, he's giving her, like, you need to move on. There are other people that you could love besides this guy, and can't really control
passed
me.
Away, right?
Yeah, who's passed away.
Well, and I'm not his replacement, right?
Yeah, and he's like, I want to take care of you, but I'm not him. Like, I have my own life, so I'm going by. And then she's like, no, you think that you're your own person, basically. But look, I still control you because I can do this. And then you're not going to see her. And I have derailed your whole life. And I'm like, wow. Ugh.
Yeah, I feel like she was just in the wrong state of mind. I mean, she was always a little... When you think back, like, obviously she picks her best friend's boyfriend to cheat with. You know, all those things, bad decisions, all through life. But yeah, that was really awful.
No, I started thinking about Yano's mom as kind of this only occurred to me recently, so maybe I didn't think it all the way through, but I was kind of like, Yano's mom is maybe the, like, bad foil to Takeuchi in the way that she, you know, steals her best friend's lover, basically, has a child with him, and Takeuchi is always, like, non-committally trying to steal Yano's girl to devastating ends where she takes her own life and tries to, like, control Yano, whereas Takeuchi would never go to those extremes. And I tried to think of his mom's death as, like, kind of the opposite of Nana-san's too.
Wasn't there something too where she said she wanted to have him because she wanted a hold over, you know, his father, right? So it wasn't just like, oh, I got pregnant. Like she was kind of trying to manipulate his father as well.
Definitely.
Which is probably why he would never meet Yano and never see them.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not playing into that crazy game you're playing right now. Yeah, I guess it would make sense if she had a chemical imbalance the whole time, but, you know, being on cancer treatment probably would exacerbate that. My limited understanding of drugs and brains coming out here, but I believe that that's a possible thing.
Right.
But yeah, I also tried to think of Yano's mom as sort of I think this plays into what we just said of, like, it's the opposite of Nana-san's death in a way, because Nana-san's death is very random. Like, I don't remember giving an explanation beyond they got in a car accident and they died, but we're not given, like, how they were hit or, like, what they hit. The specifics of the car accident, I guess. We just know very few details. Whereas Yano's mom's death is obviously not necessarily premeditated because she obviously, like, decided it that night. But, you know, she does it to herself. She decides to take her own life and do this very terrible thing to Yano. So Yano has to deal with both, like, he blames himself for accidentally taking Nana-san's life, and then he definitely blames himself for his mom's death. Right. And I'm just like, oh my god, Yano, that's so terrible. every way. Oh.
Yeah.
You said last time that you like understood her more though. So did that carry through to this half?
I think that was just what she was talking about, like changing careers and doing, like looking. It wasn't anything about who she is.
Oh, okay.
It was more like she was saying, she said something that like kind of struck me, and I'm like, oh yeah, because in the beginning you think that she's pretty much okay, right? She wants a new change. She wants to take on new challenges and nothing to do about the other stuff.
Yeah, nothing to do with her slow, like, Gone Girl craziness reveals. Like, yeah.
Yeah. We don't really realize that until a lot later. When we first meet her, I don't think we know.
Yeah, you're just kind of like, oh, yeah, she cheated.
She's like she grows flowers and she gives, like, yeah.
She has a new husband, but now she wants to change. Like, that's all right. That's adult stuff to do. Sure. Like,
or just, because she had given up a lot before. So,
right.
She's trying to
reclaim her life.
Right.
But then she gets cancer. But yeah, and then I guess the central through line of Yano's story, of course, is trying to like leave all those very terrible things in the past behind him. He still pines over Nanami, basically, because Nanami is not a bad thing from the past. She just happens to be in the middle of the bad things in the past. But that leads him to Yuri, which I was like, no, really, though? Like,
so now I'm curious. Do you like her the same as you did in the first 8 volumes, or do you feel differently about her now?
I mean...
Because you kind of liked her, right, in the first 8 volumes?
I felt like she was okay in the first 8 volumes. In the first, like, half, I was like, I get it. Yano did this kind of, like, you both did a bad thing, but, Yano's not really owning up to it. Like, I get her frustration with that, but then I'm just like, all right, you're also being full out manipulative, though, trying to, like, get him to stay with you, and I'm like, no, I'm not about this.
Yeah.
And I definitely was, like, as it was being revealed, because it becomes obvious at some point that they're, like, together, I was like, no, I can't accept this.
Well, they're together in the same way that Takeuchi and Nana are. They aren't really together. They're roommates.
It's still, no. They shouldn't be anywhere near each other.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's definitely, she goes after him, like, full on, right? I mean,
yeah.
Before her mother gets ill as well. There's a lot of mothers falling ill in this.
Yeah, there's a lot of mothers falling ill and, like, backstabbing manipulations.
Yeah, right. But so she doesn't have any other support besides him. So I think that's when she moves in, right? And she's helping him because he's having panic attacks and can't quite function on his own. So, and then once he gets better, I think her mother, he's trying to be so supportive of her. But yeah, I think the one thing about Yuri, which I hate I hate her the whole time, right?
Okay, yes.
But
understandable.
The one thing I think she does, she gives him the greatest gift towards the end,
right?
After her mom has died and she's come to terms with what she needs to come to terms with. And she's like, don't think your mom or Nana loved you in the wrong way. They knew how much you loved them. And I think that she relieved him of his guilt, right? Yeah. By reminding him that, you didn't do anything wrong and these people really loved you and they understood how you felt.
Right, she reveals the story that she's like, do you know why Nana-san was in the car that day? She was trying to tell her ex that they were definitely through and that she didn't want him to beat you up or anything. And I was like,
right.
This is a poignant end. Because, Nana-san's not really super present in the second half, but
no.
I feel like the level that she was there, I was like, that's the appropriate level.
Yeah, and I like how when Takeuchi goes to see Yano and Yuri's there, and he tries to like flip a table, but he can't quite do it.
Yeah, he's
he has to check to make sure that there's nothing in the coffee cup on the table, and that just really explains his character, right? He's never ever gonna like totally go for it. He's got to like check everything and be like, okay, it's kind of okay to do this. I'll flip the table.
Yeah. He's like, this is me imitating dramaticness, but also I made sure I could not break a single thing. And now I'm going to put it back because I feel bad. It's like, oh, Takeuchi, you sweet, sweet boy, sweet soul. You. Well. But yeah, Yuri, yeah. I think Yuri's motivations make sense most of the time. It's just the very extreme manipulation of Yano, like with her buying the bag that Yano was like, this would be cute for Nanami. And then when they were shopping with Sengenji back in Tokyo, like in the past or whatever, and Sengenji being like, you know she does this because you like let her, right?
Mm-hmm. And she uses it. She knows it and she uses it.
Yeah. Which I thought was kind of interesting because my interpretation of Yano hadn't been that he was letting Yuri do stuff to him. But like after Sengenji said it, I was like, okay, I guess. But more that he just like tried very hard to ignore her, but in the most pressing moments, like really couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Actually, thinking about characters who redeem themselves, I do think Takeuchi redeems himself towards the end.
Yeah.
I really like that scene. The scenes where they're hanging out and he comes over to Yano's place after Yano moves into a new place, and Yano says, I threw out everything I didn't need, and then Takeuchi finds the Marimo phone strap that Nanami gave him, and so he knows Yano definitely has been keeping Nanami in his thoughts, and then he gives him the ring, right?
Yes.
Which when I first went through it, I was like, is this a guilt trip? Like, why is he giving Yano an engagement ring? Right? Is he trying to be like, you ruined my relationship with Nanami? Like, it's hard to know that it's a baton until later. Like, I too was like Yano thinking, why the hell did you give him your engagement ring? Until, he's really trying to push him in the right direction. So.
Yeah. Huh. I don't remember I feel like I interpreted it as like, yes, Takeuchi's like, I mean, it was still a weird gesture, right? Like, it's just inherently kind of weird. He threw it in the ocean, right? Like, he pretended to throw it into the ocean. Right.
And that was weird. That seemed like, But then, yeah, later he did get the ring. Yeah, but then later he gives the ring to Yano. And I don't know, I thought it was always kind of clear to me that he was trying to be like, look, I didn't throw this away, but also, like, you need to, what this ring means. You need to get with Nanami. I don't know why I interpreted that, because all of Takeuchi's actions with that ring were kind of strange. Yeah, the thing off the boat, I was just like, what are you trying to do to him, And then who really wants, like, here's an engagement ring that I was going to give. I know. That's the part that was weird. I was right. He doesn't want to use that ring. Like, that's not... I get that it's like a pretty ring and you probably spent a lot of money on it, but like, let's be clear here. He's not going to give that to Nanami because that's weird. But then Yano sold it, right? That I was like, okay, that's good. And gave the money to Takeuchi, which was and he also got the message still. So he could go date 100 girls in New York. Yeah. I was kind of like, does he know English enough to date 100 girls in New York? But okay. I really liked how that reference, though, that referenced the side story when they were growing up. That one about the candles and, who keeps their candle lit and who blows theirs out and so forth. And, towards that one where he realized yet another girl who prefers Yano. Oh, yeah. And he's like, I'm going to date 100 girls. So, like, Yano remembered that. For so many years. Aw, because they are the true... Seriously, they're bromance, man. I just can't. It's too much. It's too perfect. I did want to talk about... Did you like Miyashita and Yuri's friendship? Yeah, I mean, she's not in it too much, but I think that obviously she's good for Yuri. She's the only one that Yuri has to really tell her kind of what's up. Out of her own funk, get her out of her own funk. Yeah, and I appreciate their little, like, kind of opposites attract friendship going on. I'm like, I'm into it. But obviously, Sengenji is the better friend character that is introduced here. I feel like Sengenji does a fantastic job of being present in Takeuchi, Nanami, and Yano's life, supporting them. Like, she supports all three of them, even though their goals
don't necessarily all line up. And I'm like, you're a great friend, Sangenji. Please be my friend.
Yeah, she's a friend you want.
I know.
Yeah.
So I guess we should explicitly talk about shipping across these characters. Obviously, Yano and Yuri, best ship. Just kidding. Among the worst ships.
Notice I did not even laugh.
You're like, no, that's not even a joke, Ashley.
No.
Don't even joke like that.
No.
Yeah, Yano and Yuri have every problem that Takeuchi and Nanami have, but like 10 times worse, I would say. Because there's so much more emotional baggage. Like Takeuchi and Nanami have not dead mommies, and they're pretty good in terms of stability of people didn't die around them too bad. But Yano and Yuri, no. Too much bad things. I put Sengenji in Yano because I was really afraid for a second that he was gonna fall in love with her when he, last year of high school, I was like, yeah, high school romances, long distance, like that's not gonna last. He's found this cool new girl, like they're gonna be a thing. Even though I didn't want that.
Yeah, but I think that was important that she was in there to show that Yano wasn't gonna do that. Because if he never had the temptation, you wouldn't know.
That's true. Yes. He definitely had all the temptation with her. He saw her boob at some point and was like, yeah, I was pretty into that. She's always here. She gets me. Now I've opened up to her. We're getting closer. Like, yeah.
But it was never option for him.
Right. Yeah. And she struggles with whether she even wants it to be an option for her.
Yeah, I think she realizes, obviously. I think unlike Takeuchi, because they do also bond, because he starts talking about Nanami to her, so she feels like she really knows Nanami, right?
Yeah.
But she realizes, like, but this guy's really in love with her, which Takeuchi, and Nanami, they're bonding over Yano, but Takeuchi doesn't quite, for some reason realize that, yes, Nanami really, really loves Yano. I mean, he does, but he just doesn't,
Yeah.
We've gone over it.
Takeuchi, stop it. Stop coming back here. Fine. We definitely don't like Nanami and Takeuchi. It's too one-sided. Takeuchi's like way too into it for a girl who obviously is like not into it. Yano and Nanami in the end still good, even after all that drama.
Yeah, and maybe we should also mention I don't know if there are any listeners who haven't read this series, but Yano gives, quote unquote, Takeuchi Nana when he comes back, right?
Yes.
And he wants someone to look after, and just to watch over and be there for her. So he gives up his claim, I guess you would say, to Nanami and says, Takeuchi, you carry on, right? So if anybody's wondering, like, well, why is this guy doing this, and obviously, like, his best friend has given up.
Yeah. Yeah, and since Takeuchi cares about Nanami, he doesn't want Nanami to be sad, so... But that's what's frustrating about Takeuchi in the end, is that, Yano, is like, Takeuchi, go and love Nanami with all your heart. Like, show her that you love her. And it's always people, like, pulling teeth with Takeuchi to be like, Takeuchi, you need to do some big gestures of love. Like, you need to prove it. And he just never fully steps up because he's the type of man who flips over a table only if nothing will break and he can easily put it back again.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Takeuchi. It's like, he's not bad. He's just not good. And that's disappointing. But yeah, I feel like I'm kind of surprised how sold I am on Yano and Nanami still in the end, despite all of those things, like good storytelling.
Right. I think we haven't kind of talked about like what's so amazing about their relationship, right?
Yeah. So you wanna tell us?
Well, I think a lot of it, and we were going to talk about dream sequences too, is how they find each other, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, when you were talking about Takeuchi too, when she goes and meets Yano, it's in the airport, right?
Yes.
And the first time I went through that scene, like it's from Nanami's point of view. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty brutal because Yano's acting like, oh yeah, you know, I didn't want to, you know, end it badly. That's why I never talked to you about it. I just wanted to leave you with happy memories. So she thinks it's not that big of a deal to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but during that whole time, you have to realize, like, he thinks that she and Takeuchi are together, you know, so he's kind of acting like, oh, you know, it doesn't matter. But then you realize when he talks, she buys a ticket to run in and gets past security check to talk to him a little bit more. And he tells her, you know, my best memories, the best time of my life was with you, you know, and then you realize, like, okay, he feels differently than how he's acting.
Right. Because it always is a little, you're like, did Yano give up on her? But then slowly it's revealed, especially with things like birthday cake and whatever that we've already discussed, that you're like, oh no, Yano has not gotten over anything. That's not, he just pretends like he has. Yeah, and then I think Nanami makes it clear because she buys a plane ticket to not get on a plane, so.
Right, and then he tells her, you know, memories live on and they grow. When I'm lonely, I close my eyes and I can see you anytime I want, which is pretty much a love confession, I think.
Yes.
So I think the memory sequences, and I think you had asked something too about, you know, they seem older, right, in certain dreams.
Yeah, because I was like, they're re-remembering stuff, but I was like, this is a redrawing, right? Like, it's not just straight up she took the old panels and put them in there.
So one of the most awesome parts is when Nanami gets drunk.
Yeah, awesome.
And I love that where even, you know, Obata is kind of making a joke because there's a lot of heaviness, right, in this manga.
Yes.
And she's talking about how I'll never ever make this mistake again. It's so terrible. And Nanami's, you know, lying there and you're like, oh no, what is it? And then she's like, I'll never drink this much again. You know, so it's kind of like it goes into this joke. And then Sengenji calls by mistake Yano to come help them. And so Yano's the one who's bringing Nanami home. And yeah, I was really surprised how crazy they were in that restaurant. But
that's what drinking does to you, apparently.
But yeah, so they have this she's having a waking dream, right? Mm-hmm. And they're in the same festival. She's having that kind of reoccurring memory dream of them when he confessed to her at the school festival. So they're in those festival robes they wore, but they're older because it's really happening. So she's having this scene with him and she thinks it's a dream, but Yano's actually, and there are influences of a dream in it, but he's actually really there talking to her. Right. And I thought that was like a really amazing sequence.
Yeah, just we can go full into memories and dreams now. Just like I really, that's a great example of how I really love how the manga, in telling this story, brings in its own themes of memories and how they are, you know, when we remember things, you're kind of like always making a copy, which they discuss in the manga of like what it makes a memory. Why do memories either deteriorate or at least change? And it's because you're like, you know, in making copies, there's always some artifacts that get left behind, are introduced, and all these things. And so I really loved that the in telling the story itself, with having to tell flashbacks and all these things, like, yeah, those memories change. And then as we're reading it, you know, we're making memories of reading it. And so I'm like, oh, but wait, this isn't exactly how I remember it lining up. But obviously my memory is fallible. And I'm like, oh gosh, it's goes so deep.
Right. Yeah. I think there's like a big link between dreams and memories and how you process emotions in dreams, but they're based on memories, right?
Right.
And really, that's their most truest time, you know, when they're apart, is when they're dreaming or having these memory sequences. And there's one that I noticed where, you know, Nanami's dream suddenly becomes Yano's dream, but it's a different dream, but it's like the panels are flowing together.
Right.
So they're kind of connecting in these dreams, which is really awesome.
Right.
They kind of also remember, you know, when she's leaving him on the I think it's when he's leaving on the platform, but she's talking about how his wish will become my wish. I just felt like that kind of linked to like those dream sequences and how they were connected.
Yeah. obviously that's a very poignant storytelling beat. And I just think it also links into how, outwardly, as they're living their daily lives, they're trying to convince themselves that they've gotten over certain things and they don't want to think about certain things. So it makes sense that in their dreams, their subconscious dreams, it all comes out and they're still thinking about each other and those dreams are linked. And I'm just like, yes, this is...
Yeah, and I think that scene is like so perfect in the restaurant where she's dreaming, because she never says directly like how much she knows about Yano's psyche, right? Mm-hmm. But you have that scene where she wakes up and she slaps him and she's like, I'm not dead. Don't treat me like I'm not dead. I promise I wouldn't die until after you, Mm-hmm. And then you kind of realize like how much she gets Yano, right?
Yeah. Oh, I guess I don't know how to tie this in blatantly, but I also loved in the way that it mirrors reading the story. I love that their professions are being editors. I feel like that somehow ties into they're trying to make stories, so they're editing stories as they go along, and obviously, you have memories of what the original one was, what the end was, and I guess there's also a distinction between different types of dreaming. They all have aspirational dreams of like, they wanted to be editors, and now they are. Nanami wanted to go to Disneyland. That's still not filled because she had been waiting to go with Yano and hasn't seen him for 5 years. Didn't want to go with Takeuchi because obviously Takeuchi is not Yano.
I think she did, though. I think she does tell him. Like, that's the one time where she actually is kind of mean to Yano, because she said she did go to... He asks her if she's been somewhere, and she's like, oh, yeah, I did go to Disneyland with Takeuchi. I'm like, that was the meanest thing you've ever said to
That's the meanest thing you've ever said. Right. I guess he was like, I never went. That's the one thing I managed not to do in Tokyo while I was there, because I wanted to do it first with you. And she's like, no, I went with Takeuchi.
I think another really strong point about the dreams memories. Yeah. Sorry, I was jumping back to that.
That's fine.
But when she's asking about if she and Yano are just a collection of memories.
Yeah.
And that she's always been waiting for him. And this is back when they're actually in their hometown later on. And she's remembering the past. She's remembering leaving him on the platform. Mm-hmm. And then she realizes like, oh, I see. That time was just the beginning.
Yeah.
Like that's where it started. That memory isn't where it ended. It's where our relationship really started. That was so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a rewriting, like, you have memories, but then once you get new information, like Yano gets new information about Nana-san's death and everything, like those memories that you have are not necessarily, they're just added to, and with new context, they become like a different memory, basically.
Right, like, and like at the wedding where, he's been through all of this and you just feel so bad for him. And then he hugs Nana and he tells her, I've been granted a lucky life all along because I was able to meet you.
Yes.
So he's like totally turned the perspective of like, yes, I did all this horrible stuff happened, but you were in my life. So I'm actually really lucky because I had you, Yes.
It took him a solid 8 years to get there, but it happened. Yay, Yano, you finally got there.
Yeah.
Well, that's also, I guess I had that point written down too of all this memory stuff is also poignant because so much time has passed, right? Like in story world, in the real world, this story came out over, 10 years? Something like that, right?
I think we started publishing it 10 years ago. I can't remember when the last volume came out, but it took a while.
Right.
It took a while.
There was a year hiatus too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the hiatus happened. I'm trying to remember specifically where it happened. I think it happened right after Nanami sees Yano, finally knows that Yano is alive and where he is, and then it's just no, I'm just not going to tell you how that goes. And I'm like, wow, that's a devastating place to just leave it for a year. But
I do feel obviously the mangaka has some experience with this.
Yeah.
Because it's just too true. So I'm not sure what was going on, but I do feel like she obviously probably is familiar with some of these things in this.
I was about to say, you think that some of this is based on real life?
Well, I remember her saying, like, she got the idea of the story because someone she knew or was working with, like, some guy had talked about the girl he had left behind, you know, back in high school. And so she kind of got the idea. But I do feel like it's so true to the grieving process that, you know, I think this is the kind of book that makes you, the reason why it's tough is not the subject matter, but it makes you analyze your own memories and feelings, right? Because it's so pure and raw that there's no way that you can't respond to it, right? So I think that's why people, like, you have to be open to be able to process certain memories. And I think this is like kind of a series that will make you open, right? And process things that may, so where am I going with this? I mean, I think it's like, it's an amazing series, but for some readers, maybe it is too difficult to read because it does leave you pretty raw and open, even though it's like so affirming. Like, I love how this series is like really about love and people grow and they really care about each other. There's no one who's like, there's people who do awful things because they can't really help it, but it's really affirmative and it's really about love and like connections and it's a great read, but I understand how some people like might get lost along the way.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Yuri and Takeuchi maybe do some questionable things in expressing their love for people, but I don't ever question that. That's like, yeah, Yuri like cares about Yano. Like, I don't question that in her own like little twisted way. And yeah, I mean, I won't go too much into my own personal life, but we did delay this recording a week because something super devastating was told to me like 2 hours before recording, and I was just like, this manga is too much. Like, I had just finished reading the manga and I was like, you know, okay, I just read like 8 volumes in a relatively short amount of time. I was like, some of it maybe was like a little overwrought, like maybe it's a little too dramatic at points. And then I got that phone call and was told like this devastating thing, and I was like, no, this manga is like real life and I can't handle this right now. You know, like,
yeah, there's one episode where I did feel, and that's when she's falling down the stairs.
Oh,
and
yes.
I'm like, oh, did you really have to put that in there too? Did you really have to? And I realized that, you know, Obata put that in there because she had to show that Yano was going to drop everything for Nanami after all the time that she waited for him, right? Yeah. She had to show that, like, he had to be like, you are number one to me. I am not going to, like, take care of Yuri anymore or my mom or, you know, it's all you and you're my focus. So I understand why that scene was in there, but it was still like, oh, did you have to?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you felt the same way because I read it and I was like, really though? This is how this is going to go? And then I'm so glad that in the end, the injury also ended up not being like, you know, it wasn't like, oh my God, now Nanami might also die. It was like, I hit my head a little because like a dude at the bottom of the stairs caught me. But then I just like fainted and hit my head a little bit. And I'm just like, thank you for subverting this trope because I was about to lose my mind if that was how that was going to end.
I think, it was done for Yano's reaction to it, right? And telling her that, you know, he was coming for her and please wait for him. And I really liked the spread after that where they're talking and you know who's talking, but it's not, you know, like it could be that they're just communicating in a dream, but they're actually talking, you know, about like, you know, you just got a little lost along the way, right. You know. Anyway, that was great.
Yeah. No, I really like what this manga did because, you know, it's about them becoming adults. So they've all like figuratively and literally left home. They live somewhere in Hokkaido, right? And then they've all like kind of ended up in Tokyo or other parts of Hokkaido. And I liked the use of, I mean, we all know the metaphor of like, yeah, home is where the heart is and like blah, 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 blah. But I really loved the metaphor of like the internal compass. And, you know, at their stage, it's all about like career paths and clearly starting on a path and sticking with it and all those things. And I was like, no, I love this metaphor of the internal compass. Like a compass points in a direction, but you don't have to follow a set path to like get to where it's pointing, right? And so you can get lost along the way, but you're still always going towards the the end point, feasibly.
Right, and it's your mistakes are just as important, and they're you as well as the good choices you make, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think one of those themes too, where like Yano comes to Nanami, like I guess they get drunk a lot in this, but he goes to her when it's snowing out, like he can't remember, I guess, how to get home, or he ends up, he's too drunk and he ends up on her doorstep, and they're talking, and he wonders how she is so strong. And she said, it's because I met you. You changed me and made me strong. And then later on, he tells her, I was able to live on because you were alive. So like she made him strong, that she's his compass. And then I thought the other thing that, Takeuchi even says to Yano, or no, actually, I think it's Sengenji, but he says that Nanami is Yano's sacred place. Like that she's his compass. She's the thing that, his guiding light, I guess, right?
Right.
But I think the other thing that it really struck me, and I think this had a personal impact with me, but because Nanami is so strong, Yano picks the people, like he has this conversation with Takeuchi, right? And he's like, if people are drowning, do you choose the one who you love the most, or do you choose the one who can't swim?
Yeah.
And so he's always choosing other people who can't swim over Nanami because he feels that she's so strong. But Takeuchi can tell that, Yano, she's not as strong as you think she is. Mm-hmm. And then I think that one part, that scene in the snow is so moving because Yano finally realizes, like, that she has always been only saying the words that I want to hear. And that he realizes, like, how much of a support she has been. Just because of her strength, he's made other choices. So, I don't know. It's really good. It's so good.
I know. No, that's very realistic to life because I feel like, I don't want to, again, I'm trying to like frame it in a way that's like not too personal.
Right. Yeah, I don't really want to talk about too personalist stuff with like an audience of the internet, but
yeah,
it definitely, if you read this book, you will see aspects of yourself or other people or your friends or your loved ones, But
the thing about like, well, obviously I love this person, but I need to help the person who's drowning. I was like, that is very real to many relationships I can think of. But yeah, it's too real. Everybody read it if you haven't read it. Tell us where you cry.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that also is a little surprising about it is that it's really like a lot of shoujo may be about sexual tension, right?
Yes.
And whether the couple will get together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like this one it's like a romantic thriller. Like when you're reading it, there's this really suspenseful emotional urgency to it.
Yes.
That just kind of keeps you, that's the hook. And it's not like always a happy place, but it's like you have this like, oh my God, they've got to get together. Oh my God,
Yeah.
It really has this like kind of thriller-esque type pacing, which is not the usual either. So
yeah, it was definitely on the sexual front. I do appreciate that because it had made such a big deal, especially in the beginning, about, Yano like wants to have sexy times with her all the time, but it always gets thwarted for one reason or another, that when they actually they're finally together, so I guess it's like the last chapter or whatever, and it's just like a brief scene. It's not a fanfare thing. It's just like, yes, they finally like consummated that love, and I'm like, great, perfect. I love it.
I know, and what I really liked about that too is it showed how comfortable they are with each other. You can tell it's like the first time because she kind of gives him this look when he just walks in the bathroom and she's brushing her teeth and
she's like, wow, we're really doing this right now. Okay.
Yeah. And then she just has these like really true moments where she's just like, oh, boys are really warm, and like falling out of bed and all just these like cute couple things, it just really shows their intimacy, which it's really awesome.
Yes.
I'm gonna keep saying that the whole time now.
It's just true. It's facts.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to bring up too is like how amazing her negative space is, which I may have mentioned before, but Obata is really the queen of the gut punch in the negative space. So you have these panels, where a lot of stuff is going on in the pages, and then she'll just give you like a black page with a gut punch, right?
Yes.
Like, the next time we meet, I'll never let you go. Or, there's just these things where you're like, oh, like she really knows how to lay out manga for the most emotional charge. And even some of the more subtle things, like when they are in the airport and Nanami, calls out to Yano. So and you can tell like his face is freaking out a little bit. Like he hears her, and you get these like 4 panels in a row, but there's one where there's a space, and she purposely just leaves a blank space because that's where he's fixing his expression.
Yeah.
So you can't tell what he's feeling, but he's fixing his face to face her and like pretend to be, oh, hey, casual and everything.
Yeah.
But there's so many, just in the way she draws this story is really amazing too.
Yeah. So do you think the art generally like got better, stronger, remained mostly the same, which was amazing throughout?
Yeah, I definitely think I think the first volume is hard going for a lot of people who expect a certain kind of artwork. And I know people have said like, oh, I don't like how the eyes are drawn. Well, it does change. And I think her artwork gets much, and we were even talking about like Takeuchi's like this little side character in the beginning, and then he becomes like big panel Takeuchi, right? Later on. And so I think the art really grows too with this story.
Yeah. I was also very curious about the chapters being varying lengths. Like, I was so devastated by just the really short chapter 42, which also has a lot of like negative space. It's just a lot of like Yano's sitting. It's during his mother's funeral,
right?
And like Sengenji's looking for him or something. There's a lot of space that's just kind of the same thing repeated. Like he's looking at a smokestack, so the only thing that changes in the panels is the amount of smoke or which way it's blowing or whatever, And I was just like, oh my God, it's so impactful because it's so minimalist, so impactful because it's only like 10 pages or something, like 20 pages compared to 50 or whatever the other chapters are. And I was just like, I'm glad that there was, room for her to break patterns, like she didn't have to be stuck in a mold, like it must be 50 pages or whatever.
Right. And then one of my favorites also is when Yano's proposing to Nanami in the field.
Yeah. The
feelings that you get from how she's paneled it in the space and the wind blowing between them in the tall grass.
Yes.
And he's kind of like hiding in the tall grass, and then he's like kneeling in the tall grass. And then, he walks over to her. It's just like, oh.
So good. I do have to say that I was very not into Yano's shirt in that scene, though.
What's his shirt? Oh, it's like a t-shirt.
He's wearing a t-shirt, but it's also just like weird. It's just
Screen
supposed
tone.
to be like a weird screen tone that like goes up his shirt. And I was like, no, please take that off right now. Please do this in a different, please change before you do this scene. Like, please. I don't know, just that one particular shirt. I was like, really? This is the shirt that we're choosing to have? Where are his silly English shirts? Put them back on. Like,
Oh, I see. Okay, you were, yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me too much. A lot of times, too, with the screen tones, it's the assistants choosing kind of what to color in. Sometimes not. I mean, the mangaka will also mark what screen tones to use, but it didn't necessarily bother me, but I can understand.
You look at it and you're like, I get why you might feel that.
I get why you like it. It didn't distract though from the scene for me.
Oh,
but
I'm just a shallow person who looks at Yano's t-shirts a lot. I
know. Well, you're a Yano t-shirt fan.
I am a Yano t-shirt fan. He can do better. I know he has better t-shirts. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if he. I don't know if he planned that out, right? I think they just kind of had that conversation, right? I mean, obviously he was going to confess to her. And, I mean, he really proposed to her back in high school, right? When he was
they've had multiple, like, kind of proposals at this point.
Right. So I think, he may not have, like, dressed for the day.
Yano, so disappointed in you. It's okay, I still love you.
Can I also say how awesome Nanami's mom is?
Yes.
I love that everybody else, is always trying to push her to someone else. But her mom, who married her high school sweetheart, is just like, I've always known it was Yano, you know, like you just don't smile the same way.
Yeah.
And then she knows, and Nanami doesn't even say anything. And she's like, oh yeah, you know, tell Yano to not book a hotel next time, have him come here. And, you know, they're not even really together, right? But she just knows because her daughter is smiling like she used to again. Her mom is awesome.
And it's good to have parents who don't just think like, oh, high school boyfriends are frivolous nonsense, but also don't like, you know, push it too hard. Like she's a good balance of stereotypes of moms, I feel. She's a good middle ground, steady mom, like great. Do you have any other thoughts that you'd like to bring up, or have we exhausted how much we love this manga? I don't know how many other ways we can say it, right? Like,
are you going to read it again in a decade?
Oh yeah, I have to read it once a decade now, right? Like that's
No, because definitely I think you have a different reading each time you go back to it, you know? So I think it's good to have some space in between because it's, you know, but then I think people should collect this manga and have it so they can reread it at certain points in their life, because it definitely is one of those things where you'll feel differently about it, but then, you know, all the good stuff will still be there each time you reread it.
Yeah, I'd be so curious if somebody like read it in high school, then would read it in their 20s, then read it like in your 30s and 40s, because you're like all those life cycles are kind of shown in this manga. Yeah, like with their parents are older, you know, they go through the high school to college to job transition. So I feel like as you grow up with them, like you understand their experiences more, and probably just become more empathetic to all of them. But, you know, I'm very curious. So this is a note. All of us have to go reread it in a decade. See how we feel. Thanks for listening to Shoujo and Tell. Comments, questions, constructive criticism, concerns. Need to gush about your OTP? Email shoujoandtell@gmail.com or leave a comment on shoujoandtell.com/wewerethere2. We're at Shoujo and Tell on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and probably other things that I don't remember. Tumblr, I don't know. Stuff. Nancy, where can listeners find your work on the internet?
I have a Twitter at Thistlethwaite, and you can read. I oversee the Shojo Beat Twitter feed at Shojo Beat, and the Tumblr at Official Shojo Beat, or we even have a Facebook at Official Shojo Beat.
All right, so are you excited every time you see a new episode from Shoujo and Tell? If so, please leave a rating in iTunes or Stitcher. This will help the podcast reach more hearts, or at least ears. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next time to discuss the series Strobe Edge by Io Sakisaka. Strobe Edge is a compelling title, so I know you already want to stay tuned. Until then, bye!